Gong! The silver medallion hanging behind the stage was hit with a mallet, quieting the crowd as Pootah took the stage. Poppy had half a tart hanging from her mouth, and her eyes widened in the sudden still and quiet. This was it. Scylla pulled her chair close to Poppy's, and the sisters squeezed hands. "Welcome, fellow gnomes, welcome!" Pootah's bulging purple robes billowed with the flickering movements of his arms, creating the illusion of a rippling purple puddle after a stone's been tossed in the center. "I hope you're enjoying our coat festival as much as I am." He rubbed his plump round belly. "And now, with our stomachs full and our hearts happy, it's time for the moment you've been waiting for. Will all 12ling gnomes please attend me on the stage?" Poppy let go of Scylla and leaped from her seat like she'd been burned with smoldering coals. Every gnome erupted in cheers as 9 12lings headed for the front of the room, and even though the stage was halfway across the hall, Poppy was first in line. Russ's voice echoed over the rest. "Go, Poppy! Get your hedgehog coat! Make Mother proud!" But even the ensuing laughter couldn't upset her now. She was about to get her very own magic coat. The chief cleared his throat. "Over 200 years ago, the founders of our colony escaped the tyranny of Yorkshire to start a new life. We endured by the grace of the wood fairies, who gifted the seamstress Mordra with long life and taught her the secret of magic coat making." There was an outcry of appreciation at these words, even though they were the exact same he spoke every year on this night. Poppy cheered loudest of all. "Bring forth the coat maker." Pootah's arms went up in the air, the folds of purple fabric cascading down his lumpy arms, bearing them for the crowd. Mordra waddled forward to the stage, draped in several robes and laden with a threadbare sack. White wisps of hair poked out in all directions from under her hat, and Poppy couldn't tell if they originated from her head, her ears, or her eyebrows. Mordra ignored Pootah and walked straight to the gnome furthest from Poppy. Her chest deflated. So much for being first in line. Mordra held the bag in front of him and spoke, her voice crackling and low like a plow cutting through dry, brittle soil. "Claim your coat and your destiny." Poppy watched the first gnome delve his hand into the sack to pull out a gray coat shimmering like spider silk. The thin fabric flowed to the floor, and with a flourish he wrapped it around himself and pulled the hood over his head. The coat engulfed him, clinging to his feet, hands, and legs. It melded with his body, but also changed his form. Soft fur appeared, and he hunched over on all fours, growing in size while his face elongated into a muzzle with tiny, squinting eyes. Where a gnome had stood only a moment before was a gray mole, twitching his pink nose at the crowd. "A mole!" cried Chief Pootah. "We have a mole! How lovely!" The crowd roared. Poppy bit her lip and swiped a sweaty palm on her tunic, then fiddled with the twine covering on her left arm. "Just a few more minutes, and my lumpy arm won't matter any more." Mordra moved to the next gnome in line, who also pulled a gray coat from the bag, and after brandishing it around his shoulders like a cape, transformed into a rat twice the height of a gnome when standing on its hind legs. Poppy's foot tapped a rapid beat on the stage. 6 to go. The following gnome, a girl, pulled out a sandy-colored coat with flecks of bright white. She transformed into a small rabbit, no bigger than a kit. There was a general sigh of admiration from the assembly, and Poppy's heart welled with jealousy. That could have been mine, she thought. Then she reminded herself, no matter what coat she received, it would be better than no coat at all. After the rabbit transformation, the twins Pootah had been talking to earlier got matching mouse coats. Then there were 2 more rats, and the final gnome pulled an orange coat that changed him into a squirrel. Finally, Mordra stopped before Poppy and opened the bag. Her skin looked almost transparent, and she smelled of herbs and pipe smoke. "Claim your coat and your destiny." "My coat," Poppy whispered. She took a deep breath, then exhaled with an almost inaudible whistle, allowing her body to relax. Somewhere in the crowd, her family was watching. This was her moment. Poppy reached a trembling hand into the bag to take the final coat. The light fabric was cold and smooth as water. She drew it out effortlessly, and it flowed like a waterfall spilling over rocks. Poppy looked at the shimmering brown and white speckles and swelled with hope that it might be a rabbit. But the hood was white, with a strange yellow blemish. What animal has a patch of yellow fur? Pootaw gave her an impatient nod. Here goes, she thought, and closed her eyes to swirl the magical coat over her shoulders. Poppy was melting, but at the same time being molded like clay. Warmth spread from her heart out to her limbs, and she felt the increase of strength as her muscles grew and shifted. Her mind held tightly onto her thoughts, but she wasn't sure about her limbs, her eyes, or her ears. It was the moment of truth, time to check her left hand. She flexed, but didn't feel the spread of fingers. Her chest tightened and breaths came out in short bursts. It didn't work. My right hand has no fingers. Not only has the coat forsaken her left hand, it had destroyed the use of her right hand, and now she was completely lame. Poppy opened her eyes at last and saw the General Assembly gaping at her. They clung to each other with wide eyes, backing away from the stage. In such disorder, they knocked chairs over and toppled plates from tables. When Poppy swiveled her neck to look at her right hand, there was a cry of fear and a surprise at the jerky movement. "It's just me," Poppy tried to say. "Whatever I've turned into, it's still me." But in place of the words, Poppy heard a soft, "Hoo-hoo." Colors and shapes mingled as her eyes adjusted to the intense augmentation of her sight, and when the room came into focus, Poppy's beak dropped open. Instead of arms, she had two large feathery wings attached to a stout, tawny breast of fine plumage. No, 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 this is all wrong. Gnomes are afraid of owls. They don't become owls." She looked toward the crowd, still backing away in fear and mistrust, all except Father, who moved toward her with an outstretched hand. Poppy's vision blurred, and an icy cold ran through her body. The world around her blackened, and she fainted off the stage and onto a banquet table, knocking over a bowl of raspberry drupelets so they scattered across the floor.